All right, guys. So today's day 3 of our really short mini horse lesson. And today probably is the most amount of work I need you to do. Not that much, but we really want to dive in. So far we've covered basic horse stuff on Monday. Tuesday, we looked at horse colors. And now day 3, we're going to look at horse breeds. Now, horse breeds, vastly different. Okay. But before we do that, as promised, I try to dive in each day with a different type of competition. And so I think I'm going to begin with one and end with one today. So we're going to begin by looking at something called dressage. So as we look at dressage today, our textbook likes to describe dressage as a form of dance with horses. And I know that may sound kind of interesting. But dressage is essentially what it is. It's a form of English riding, as opposed to some of the Western riding that we're more used to around here, I would say. But it's looking at the natural motions of the horse. And through this training, the horse learns how to carry the rider, how to balance, and basically doing various motions. And so you're seeing this routine essentially that is prepared through dressage. Once again, communication between the rider and the horse here. And so they're going to do these various movements, these various routines, and they're going to have a score that's tied with this. And so you can kind of see those ladies sitting there at the table. Um, I'm not going to elaborate a lot on dressage because I learned not to speak from a place of ignorance, and it's not something necessarily that I know a whole lot about, but I know that we have a number of students that do this. And what do you think about the amount of time and the amount of training that goes into this? And this just shows you the vast array of what horses can be trained to do. Think about cutting. Those cutting horses, not very patient, right? I mean, those things are taught to go constantly and constantly react. And you think about these horses, far different type of skill and ability. And so anyway, so that's dressage, English riding style that is in the Olympics. It is an Olympic sport. And so you could be a gold medal Olympian for something like this. And you think about these horses oftentimes are older than some of the other competition horses in that it takes so much training and so much, I would say, maybe maturity or mental training to get to that point. Today, we're going to look at breeds of horses. And you may remember there's 3 classes of horses, and we have the ponies, which are very small, your light horses, and then your draft horses. Today, I'm going to kind of leave the ponies behind and focus on our light horses and our draft horses. If you're on my vet science team, this ID may look really similar. I did steal this PowerPoint, but I think it's really good. And so I'm going to go through this. If you want to take notes, once again, that probably will help you on the assignment that we need to do at the end of the hour. And so we're going to dive right in. So we talk about light horses, and most riding horses are going to fit in this light horse category. And they normally originate from some type of Arabian type horse, right? Because that is the oldest known horse breed in the world. And there's these 2 types. There's hot-blooded and warm-blooded, which we're going to talk about here. When we talk about hot-blooded, these guys really resemble the old Arabian type horses. They're very high-strung, very worked up. Their temperament can be a lot. They're very fast, energetic, and strong. You think about people that run, and oftentimes very energetic, probably not so chill and sit back. And you think about a runner who's about to take off in a race, and those people are probably pretty amped, pretty psyched, right? Maybe even a little bit jittery. And that's what you would think about when you talk about these hot-blooded horses. So the first 2, the 2 that we're really going to talk about in this area, these are light horses. But the first one is Arabian. And so if you look at this Arabian horse, I will tell you, here's what's going to get confusing about these breeds of horses. The color, in many instances, not in all instances, but in many instances, the color is irrelevant. It's more about the conformation. It's more about the build. As you look at these short pencil neck type horses right here, and you see that dish profile over their face. Do you see that dish right there? Okay, how their face kind of bends right there. These guys, if we talk about them, they are in that, kind of mid to lower end of the light horse, 14 to 15.3 hands. Oldest breed in the world, and they can be so many different colors. We didn't talk about gray yesterday. We talked about many of these colors, often used for endurance racing. Now, what's endurance racing? This is going to run a very, very, very long time. Okay. We're talking, our book talks about endurance riding being 50 to 100 miles in a day. Yeah, driving 50 to 100 miles in a car in a day is a long ride, but racing, that's insane. Okay. What do we see about these guys? Their characteristics, they are petite frame, meaning they're small. They have a small dish face. You notice their head's pretty small. Their tail sets up pretty high, if you notice that right there. Their back is short. They have less vertebrae than other breeds, and they have this long, kind of arching neck. Very kind of interesting looking. And so that's your Arabian. Once again, I think you can see kind of that dish profile, the long arching neck, the tail setting up high, and they have a short back. And less vertebrae is kind of interesting. So you can see all that right there. The colors, though, man, they can really vary. So that's an Arabian horse. That is one of the ones that'll be on our assignment here at the end of the hour. Next, we have a thoroughbred. Okay. Now, as we look at a thoroughbred, you may notice it's a lot stouter than one of these, and you may recognize these a little bit more. We're going to talk about, if we talked about Secretariat in class before, that's an example of a thoroughbred type horse. Okay, and that's the question there. This is actually a picture of Secretariat, known by many as the greatest racehorse of all times. Okay, once again, thoroughbreds, they're found in all solid colors, though black is pretty rare, but they're known for running what we would consider middle distances. The winners of the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, different things like that. Those horses are typically these thoroughbred horses. They're taller, but they're still a leaner framed animal. I want you to think about the difference in a short and a long distance runner. These guys are still kind of getting that longer distance, but they can run it at very fast speeds, up to 40 miles an hour for a long time. What you're going to notice about them, though, is they are just they're heavier muscle than like an Arabian, but they're still pretty lean, lanky frame. You need those long legs, right? Like I said, you think about the person who's going to go win the Boston Marathon. Tall, lanky, very long legs, less strides needed, that type of thing. Okay. Now, as we move to warm-blooded horses, these are going to be larger horses. They're more mild temperament and more quick and agile. Okay, so these horses are not as antsy, not as jittery necessarily, and a little bit more stout. Okay, so these are going to be ones we're all going to talk about today: Appaloosa, Morgan horse, a paint horse, a quarter horse. I believe I nixed the saddlebred and Tennessee walking horse. Okay, so this is an example of an Appaloosa, as we talked about yesterday. Appaloosa is known for that distinctive spotted coat. You're going to see that molted kind of spotty type skin around the muzzle, the eyes, and even the genitals. You're going to see a white membrane around their eyes, and then vertical light and dark stripes on their hoofs. Okay, those are things that we would see in these Appaloosas, and there's all kinds of patterns. From you think about like the snowflake one in the bottom left, or even the leopard one in the bottom right, very, very spotted all over. The blanket in the top right, not so much. And we even get something like the frost one up there that you wouldn't even look at that and think, bam, that's an Appaloosa. But they all have these genes for spotted, and we trace these genes. And to be a registered Appaloosa light horse, you're gonna have to be able to show that in a blood test. Okay. The next one that we're going to talk about is a Morgan horse. Okay. Possibly kind of confused with an Arabian horse. Any of these colors are acceptable. We could use them for maybe leisure trail riding, show type animals. You're going to see a shorter head, but a wider forehead. But you'll notice it doesn't have that dish profile that we're going to see in the Morgan horses. They're going to have a strong arch back, and they're trained to stand this way. So if you look at this one on the bottom left, that's kind of in their genetics. They've been trained to stand that way, which to me is kind of interesting. But to each their own. Next, we're going to talk about paints, and we talked about paints a little bit yesterday as well. Typically used for leisure riding, trail riding, showing, ranch work, etc. And the two most common ones, Tabiano and Avero. And like I said, I'm really not going to get into this a lot today. Quarter horses, many of you, if you have had horses, quarter horses are probably the ones that you've had. Quarter horses and thoroughbreds, very common. What I want you to notice about this one, this is a bodybuilder. And you think about a dude lifting weights at the gym. These OSU players or college players that are maxing out at a certain thing. How many reps are they doing when they max out? Probably one, right? Not 10 reps, okay? And your bodybuilders are those ones that do short reps, high intensity, high endurance, okay? And so that's something you're going to see with these quarter horses. There's a bunch of different coat colors we're going to see, but they get their name because they can run short distances very, very, very fast. They're going to win a short distance race over a thoroughbred or Arabian. In fact, they're known for running the quarter mile very fast, and that's where the name quarter horse comes from. But they're not going to have the stamina. So if you were to run one of these things, in a several mile race, or even one of these endurance ridings of 50 to 100 miles an hour or a day, the Arabians are going to destroy them. These are very good. You notice it says high calcins. These guys are really good at working cattle. You're going to see them as those cutting horses we showed. Muscular power, very powerful, very intelligent, very quick, definitely a lot thicker type horse. And so I like this comparison. I stole this slide from online. Your Arabian is kind of your cross-country marathon runner. So you think about a marathon runner, they have high endurance, they're very lean, carrying less weight, low muscle mass, and I no offense to that, but if you look at the guy at the very top, right, very stringy, spread out muscles, but we don't want to carry a lot, and not as fast of a sprinter. We think about the thoroughbreds, the kind of middle distance ones here, the endurance is in the middle, they're lean, but they're kind of in that middle there. But if we look at the bottom, those quarter horses, those sprinters, they're a lot thicker. So we compare the dude to the bottom, which you probably know who that is, and the guy at the top, right? Vastly different builds, okay? The quarter horse, the sprinter, is going to win in that short race, but the long distance one's going to go further. So if you compare Arabian, a thoroughbred, and a quarter horse, Arabians are going to run the longest but have the shortest burst. Quarter horses are going to run the fastest, but not as long. And thoroughbreds are kind of there in the middle. Okay. I'm actually going to skip over, I believe, saddlebreds and Tennessee walking horses, and I'm going to move directly into the draft horses. So draft horses are cold-blooded. So we talked about hot-blooded being very antsy, running a long time, always wanting to run. Warm-blooded being kind of a mix of that, a little thicker and stouter. And can still run, but not as maybe as intense for as long. These cold-blooded horses, they're very tall, right? 16, 17, 18, 19 hands tall, very muscular, very heavy, big hoofs. And the three common ones that are going to be your assignment today is the Belgian, the Clydesdale, and the Percheron. Okay, so we start with this Belgian right here. Okay, the Belgian is that sorrel color. Usually with a white mane and tail, or we could see a bay or a roan. But what you will see with these guys, look at the legs on these things. Very thick, very stout, can pull, very heavy things for 8 to 10 hours a day. Not going to win a race, but they're going to be like in those pulling competitions we talked about. Clydesdales are the most commonly known because we do see them in the Budweiser commercials or pulling the Express Ranch carriages. You're going to see with them, they can be all these different colors, but you're going to see on their legs these white hairs that kind of stick out, and they're called feathers. These guys are typically more fancy, so we don't see them as much on the farm, but we instead see them in parades, pulling carts, etc. Okay? And then finally, we have the Percheron, and the Percheron are typically your grayish to black color. They can be used, for multiple things as well, but they don't have feathers on their legs like many of the draft breeds. So if we even look at, these Belgians, they still have that the Clydesdales do as well. The Percherons, not so much. Okay, so as I move into today's assignment, okay, this is basically what I'm going to expect you to do. So all the ones we just covered, the Appaloosa, the Arabian, the Morgan, the Paint, the Quarter Horse, and then our three draft horses, our Belgian, our Clydesdale, and our Percheron. You're going to go through these right here, and what I'm wanting you to do is put a picture right here of one, use Google Image, and I want you to give me as much detail. And listen, if you have time left in the hour, continue to add the detail, because the more detail you give for these, the more points that I'm probably going to give you. If you go to this first one and it says click here and you click on it, you can pull some of these up and you can see some of these. So if I click on Quarter Horse, I can see the different views of the horse. I can see some of the details. I can see where they actually came from. And so you can go up and down, and I believe every single one of these are listed on here. And so anyway, that's kind of the focus today. Get those breeds done. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email. You guys have a great day.